I don't think you wake up in the morning with the perfect startup idea. It's probably you rather have to navigate through many dead ends and even pivots before you end up with some unique insights that allows you to transform an idea to a viable business, essentially.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Sylvan.
Adrian, a very well welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's a pleasure to have you as a guest today.
Great to be here. Thanks, Sylvan.
You're the co-founder at Kadoa, a software that allows you to automate data processing with generative AI. I'm going to jump right into the first question to learn more about it. What actually motivated you to start your own company, your own startup?
Happy to tell you a bit more about that. So I'm a big fan of the idea maze concept. I don't think you wake up in the morning with the perfect startup idea. It's probably you rather have to navigate through many dead ends and even pivots before you end up with some unique insights that allows you to transform an idea to a viable business, essentially. And I think that's what happened to us. So I noticed the absurd amount of time that goes into manual data processing at enterprises. They essentially move a lot of data from place A to place B, might do some transformation in between, but usually that's a rather manual in-house process. And then there are thousands of freelancers who do nothing else than boring data entry work. So they extract the information from a website or a PDF. They might put that into a certain structure before they copy and paste it into a spreadsheet. We think that AI is like one of the superpowers of AI is automating such boring and tedious work. And that's essentially how it started.
Okay, so I see you identified a problem that larger companies have, and it's a really manual, a tedious task that they do to process all the data. But why are you working on this right now? Why is the timing for you exactly right in this moment?
I think three reasons for why now. One is the rapid growth in unstructured data. So 80% of all data is unstructured. And I think around 80 to 90% of all data worldwide was produced over the last 2 years. So there's literally a data explosion happening right now. And until now, it was very expensive and tedious to make this data accessible and actionable. But now with tools like Kadoa, we can essentially provide the picks and shovels for BI tools, for proprietary AI models to work with this data. So that's one reason. Another one, I think an important one is that AI enables new automations. So things that weren't possible before, like understanding complex data structures, understanding very diverse set of unstructured data that wasn't possible before. So that's an enabler for us. And the third reason for why now is probably the general demand for automation and efficiency in the economy. So companies need to cut costs, they need to automate workflows, internal workflows. And I think these three reasons combined are the why now for us.
It feels like a bit we're on an inflection point where not only the data that is out there that needs help, but also the technology who actually can provide that help come together. The additional part that you need to leverage and really capitalize on this inflection point is the team. So I also wonder, what experience does your team bring to the table to put all of that into practice?
Absolutely. I think, we navigated through the idea maze, and we're three co-founders, as I've mentioned. And we've talked to many customers to validate this idea. And now we're well positioned for a 10x improvement. So Johnny, he's our CTO. He initially, I think, studied embedded systems engineering. And he brings a lot of engineering and data science experience to the table. We've been working together for 3 years at the Swiss bank and funny story, we had like a side project coffee every Monday morning where we exchanged ideas that we had over the weekend or that we have been working on over the weekend. And then suddenly, this idea evolved over time of automating data processing work, essentially. And then there is Tavis. He's the third co-founder. He brings in the complementary sales and marketing skills that we as engineers might be lacking sometimes. He has 13 years of marketing experience at big companies. He's Canadian, which helps a lot with selling in North America. And he's also a self-taught developer and initially reached out to Johnny and me because he was working on a similar thing in a similar space like we are. And that's how we eventually pretty randomly teamed up.
Amazing. And you can also talk about your role. I mean, you're of course also one of the co-founders, so people are also interested to see what do you focus on? What's your background?
Of course. I also have an engineering background, so I've been working in various engineering roles for the last 10 years. Lastly, I've been working at an agency called Panther, where I got to know the startup ecosystem basically in a safe environment. So I was able to work for startups, but I didn't have to put money on the table or reduce my salary. So this was a great experience. And I started to love entrepreneurship and really also see the challenges that come with it before I eventually became a founder myself.
Fantastic. And can you also talk a bit more about the milestones that you have recently achieved with your company?
Sure. I think one of the biggest milestones in the last weeks was the 100K annual recurring revenue, although it's mostly a psychological milestone, but it shows that we have a validated and commercialized product. We built that within just 8 months. So this was a big achievement for us. Another one, I think, is the launch of our self-service. So people can completely self-onboard themselves on Kadoa now since 2 weeks, I think. And it's an important part of our product-led growth strategy. So we want to provide the value first and only then talk to people or they have to talk to sales only after seeing the value in our solution. So we have a playground, we have a free trial. And I think this helps a lot for customers to figure out, okay, they're not just claiming to automate whatever they claim, but rather actually I can try it out before I have to talk to sales. So that was another important one. And then the last one I think that was really motivating is that our 2 biggest enterprise customers have increased their usage and their subscription. And so the return on invest is really clear for them. And this was a big milestone as well, because you never know how their business case or ROI calculation will turn out. And we're glad it went that way. So it's a huge efficiency boost for our existing customers as well.
And it's actually huge milestones that you mentioned, not only to have fast traction in terms of revenue in these 8 months, but also seeing your customers expanding the usage and their spend on your solution. That's a very, very big sign from my perspective. Congrats on that.
Thanks.
So there's obviously a lot of movement, right, in the space. So I also wonder, what is the competitive landscape on the market side like? Do you have any key competitors and how do you differentiate in the market?
Sure. I think I would divide our competitors into 2 spaces. One is like browser and workflow automation tools. And one is like the current workaround that we see at our customers, which is in-house developers who use other tools for, let's say, web scraping, data mapping, or data integration work. Let's say you want to monitor like interesting startups. So you can invite the founders to your podcast here. You could do that with both tools. So you could use a browser automation tool that goes to these news websites, to Crunchbase, to Product Hunt, and extracts interesting startup data. But the big drawback there is that you would still have to install a Chrome extension. You would still have to do some manual work. And compared to us, you would also have to do maintenance once one of the sources changes. So the big differentiator for us is that we're maintenance free. So once a data source changes, we regenerate the necessary code and that is responsible for extracting the data. And the customers just get the data back that they did before. So it's literally on autopilot, the work. And then the current workaround, which is, you could hire a developer or a virtual assistant to do it, who would do manual plugging together of the different data sources and then put it into the format like you want to have it. But that wouldn't be like scalable, that wouldn't be efficient, and you might end up not with a good data quality at the end. We have an AI first architecture, so it means we can plug and play different models. This is also helpful with the rise of open source models. We can just test them against our evaluation data and then go into production really quick. So there is an execution advantage on our side, I would say. And the last point is that we're enterprise ready. So we've played around with copy pasting a CSV or HTML into GPT, and it can structure it. So it's pretty easy. But doing that at an enterprise scale level with millions of data records every day, reliably, without any hallucination, I think that's a whole different story. And that's what differentiates us against like some upcoming tools that we see out there that might be fun to play with. But if you really need to rely on it, it's hard to use them. And also I've mentioned hallucination. So you can't allow for any hallucination in use cases for finance or healthcare, for example. So that's another big differentiator.
Absolutely. You mentioned the importance of the enterprise readiness. In that regard, is that the typical customer that you want to go after, like big corporations, big enterprises, or who is your typical customer today and in the future?
Currently, I would say it's small and medium enterprises, mainly because we're not fully ready for the very big customers, but we're working on that. And we already have like some pretty big clients in the pipeline where we're doing proof of concepts. For example, Apple or Xing, where the data volume is high and also where the expectations are high. So we definitely are working towards the very big enterprise clients, while also enabling our self-service users to do it themselves. So usually there is a synergy between the enterprise customers and the self-service customers, and they use the same product in the background.
Fantastic. And we all know, despite the milestones that you have achieved, that there are also always challenges along the entrepreneurial journey. So I wonder, for you, what was the toughest challenge that you had to overcome so far?
I would say the toughest challenge so far has been the diversity of data structures. So even though AI is really good at understanding HTML or PDF structures, it's crazy what what we see in the wild out there in terms of how a website can be structured or a PDF can be structured. So this resulted in us having to do a lot of post and pre-processing steps in our AI pipeline, essentially. And we still encounter like edge cases from time to time, but we get better and better as we optimize our models, as we see more broader data. Over 30,000 people have already tried our playground, and this gives us additional data to further fine-tune and optimize our models.
Wow, that's impressive. That's a big number. I now wonder also, you're currently fundraising, right? So how much money are you looking for, and what do you plan to use these funds for?
So we've raised a small angel round last November that allowed us to go full-time. And now within that time, we've productized and commercialized the product, as I've mentioned, with the first milestones. And now we're basically ready to scale this more, because currently the main bottleneck is our human capital. We have a full sales pipeline. We pretty much know where the product should go, but we're very limited because it's still just the three of us. And that's why we're raising 1.5 million now for a 24-month runway. We want to achieve validated product market fit, acquire 13 new big enterprise customers, and reach break even within that time. Most of the funds will be spent on product development because we're a product-led company. So that's obvious. And some of it, obviously, for sales and marketing and our infrastructure. The vision is basically to provide the building blocks to solve any data processing task and automate it, making data accessible and actionable.
Fantastic. And within this fundraising round, you also open a ticket in the Swisspreneur Syndicate. So if anyone is interested to check your material to make their own decision whether they would like to be part of your journey, they can sign up for the Swisspreneur Syndicate. Just a disclaimer, this is of course no investment advice and everyone has to make their own investment decision. So Adrian, to wrap up the conversation today, I also have 3 rapid fire questions for you. Starting with the first one, what was your summer job as a teenager?
I didn't really have one because I grew up on a farm, so my summer job was basically helping out there. And contrary to the stereotype of farmers, I think farming is serious business with a lot of planning, risk mitigation, and so forth and so on. So I guess that's how I got initially interested in entrepreneurship.
It sort of is, you're your own entrepreneur to a certain degree, right? 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you most proud of in your life?
It's a bit of a boring answer, but it's my team at Kadoa. You're a founder yourself, so you know it. You don't really know what you're getting yourself into when you first team up with your co-founders. And there are many stories about co-founders breaking up or dividing. So I'm very happy that it turned out so well, because as an early stage startup, all the other things we've talked about are important too. They need to line up. But at the end, it's still the team, it's still the execution speed. That is the most important thing.
Absolutely. And that's a good thing to be proud of from my perspective.
Yeah.
The last question for you today, Adrian. What's a surprising fact that people don't know about you?
Despite my analytical and very rational mindset as a founder and engineer, I'm the complete opposite when it comes to football, when I'm supporting my favorite team, the Young Boys in Bern. So I've been a season ticket holder for 15 years, I guess. And I'm, very passionately and emotionally cheering and shouting with my friends when I'm at the stadium. And I think, it's a good counterbalance to my work life. And if people would see me side by side, they would probably ask if this is really the same person.
That's a really fun fact, because tonight they're playing their first Champions League game. So you're going to be in there in the stadium for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very nice. Adrian, thank you so much for your time and for the interesting insights. I wish you the best of luck and success. And I'm pretty sure that you will be back here on the show with your company in the future. All the best.
Thanks so much, Sylvan. I hope so.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.